You might be wondering how I got this amazing deal on a classic Jaguar car. Well, it all started when I was browsing online for some vintage cars to add to my collection. I have always loved Jaguar cars, especially the ones from the 1950s to the 1970s. They have such a sleek design, a powerful engine, and a rich history. I came across a website that listed all kinds of classic Jaguar models for sale, from the XK120 to the XJ220. I was scrolling through the pages, admiring the beautiful photos and reading the descriptions, when something caught my eye. It was a 1969 Jaguar E-Type, one of the most iconic and desirable cars ever made. It had a stunning red color, a convertible top, and a 4.2-liter DOHC inline-6 engine. It looked like it was in mint condition, and the price was only $250. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. How could such a rare and valuable car be sold for such a low price? Was it a scam? Was it a typo? I had to find out more. I clicked on the ad and read the details. The seller claimed that he was moving out of the country and needed to sell his car quickly. He said that he had inherited the car from his grandfather, who had bought it new in 1969 and kept it in his garage ever since. He said that he had all the original documents, including the title, the registration, and the service records. He also said that he had recently restored the car and that it ran perfectly. I was intrigued by his story, but I was also skeptical. How could he sell such a precious car for so little money? Was there something wrong with it? Was he hiding something? I decided to contact him and ask him some questions. I sent him an email with my phone number and asked him to call me as soon as possible. I also asked him where he was located and if I could see the car in person. I waited anxiously for his reply. After a few hours, I got a phone call from him. He sounded friendly and genuine. He told me that he was in New York City and that he had parked his car at a friend's place near Central Park. He said that he was leaving for London in 2 days and that he wanted to sell his car before he left. He said that he was willing to let me see the car and test drive it if I was interested. I told him that I was very interested and that I wanted to see the car as soon as possible. I asked him if he could meet me tomorrow morning at his friend's place. He agreed and gave me the address. He also gave me his name, John Smith. I hung up the phone and felt a surge of excitement. Could this be real? Could I really get a classic Jaguar for only $250? I decided to take a chance and find out for myself. After finding the listing for the classic Jaguar online, I contacted the seller and arranged to meet him at his place. I was excited to see the car in person, but I also knew I had to be prepared to negotiate a good deal. I did some research online and found out the manufacturer's suggested retail price, MSRP, and the dealer's invoice price for the Jaguar. I also checked the car's book value, which is the original cost minus depreciation. I used these numbers as a reference point for my negotiation strategy. When I arrived at the seller's place, I greeted him and complimented him on his car. He seemed happy to show me around and tell me about its history and features. He said he had owned it for 10 years and had maintained it well. He also said he had all the service records and receipts. I asked him if I could take a test drive and he agreed. I got behind the wheel and started the engine. It sounded smooth and powerful. I drove around the neighborhood and checked the brakes, steering, suspension, and transmission. Everything seemed to work fine. I parked the car and got out. I thanked him for the test drive and then proceeded to inspect the car more closely. I looked for any signs of rust, damage, or repairs on the body, tires, windows, lights, and mirrors. I also checked under the hood and under the car for any leaks or cracks. The car was in good condition overall, but it was not perfect. I noticed some minor scratches on the paint, somewhere on the leather seats, and some cracks on the dashboard. I pointed these out to the seller and asked him how he arrived at his asking price of $5,000. He said he based it on the car's rarity, popularity, and performance. He said he had seen similar models sell for much more online. He also said he had invested a lot of money and time into keeping it in good shape. I told him I understood his point of view, but I also had to consider my budget and the market value of the car. I showed him some online listings of comparable Jaguars that were selling for less than his price. I also mentioned that his car would need some repairs and maintenance in the near future. I offered him $3,000 as a starting point for negotiation. He looked surprised and offended by my offer. He said it was too low and that he would never sell his car for that amount. He said he would rather keep it than give it away. I told him I didn't mean to insult him or his car. I said I was just trying to be realistic and fair. I asked him what was the lowest price he would accept for his car. He said he would not go below $4,500. He said that was already a bargain for such a classic car. I told him that was still too high for me. I said I could go up to $3,500, but that was my final offer. He hesitated for a moment and then said he would think about it. He asked me if I was serious about buying his car. I told him yes, I was very interested in his car, but only if we could agree on a reasonable price. He looked at me and then at his car. He sighed and said he would accept my offer of $3,500. I smiled and shook his hand. I told him he had made a good decision and that I would take good care of his car. We went inside his house and completed the paperwork. He gave me the title, the keys, and the service records. I gave him a cashier's check for $3,500. We thanked each other and wished each other well. I got in my new Jaguar and drove away with a feeling of satisfaction and excitement. I had just bought a classic Jaguar for only $3,500. You won't believe how I did it. Now that I had the car in my garage, it was time to fix the minor issues and restore it to its original glory. Here's what I did. First, I tackled the wiper motor, which had failed and left me with no wipers. I followed a YouTube video that showed how to remove the wiper mechanism and test the motor. It turned out that the motor was fine, but the wiring was corroded and loose. I cleaned and soldered the wires, and reinstalled the wiper assembly. It worked like a charm. Next, I addressed the automatic climate control, which was erratic and unresponsive. I learned from another YouTube video that this was a common problem with the Jaguar S-Type, and that it could be fixed by replacing a faulty resistor pack. I ordered a new resistor pack online for $20, and replaced it following the instructions in the video. The climate control was back to normal, and I could enjoy hot or cold air as I pleased. Then, I moved on to the engine, which had a slight misfire and rough idle. I checked the spark plugs and found that they were worn and dirty. I replaced them with new ones, and also changed the oil and filter. I also cleaned the throttle body and mass airflow sensor with some carb cleaner. The engine ran much smoother and quieter after that. After fixing the mechanical issues, I focused on restoring the appearance of the car. The paint was faded and dull, but it was still original lacquer paint, which could be revived with some elbow grease. I used some modern compound and a wool pad to rub out the oxidation and scratches, and then polished it with some fine polish and a foam pad. The paint shone like new, and revealed the beautiful curves of the Jaguar. Finally, I restored the wood veneer on the dashboard and door panels, which had cracked and peeled over time. I carefully removed the old veneer with a heat gun and a scraper, and then sanded down the substrate to make it smooth. I ordered some new veneer online that matched the original color and grain of the wood. I cut it to size and glued it to the substrate with some wood glue. I then applied up to 20 thin coats of water-based UV-safe lacquer with a spray gun, sanding lightly between each coat. The wood veneer looked stunning, and added a touch of class to the interior. I was very proud of my work, and amazed at how much I had transformed the car with some basic tools and skills. The classic Jaguar was now ready to hit the road again, and turn some heads along the way.